So my name is Tony Lee. I'm here to talk to you about bringing SQL to Aerospike and how we solve big data problems in the enterprise. Here we go. OK. So first off, what does Starburst do? Not like the candy in front of you. What we do is we help customers with faster time to insight. And you've probably heard that a couple times, right? So what does it mean for us? To us, it means we give customers the ability to ask any analytical question across any data, be it pulling statistics, building a graph, doing custom analysis, building a model, and do that through a simple SQL query. And without any data movement, without time wasted to copy, to duplicate data, without ETL, ELT, you name it, right? And return that in real business time. That's sort of what we do. And we'll have a demo in the middle as well to go through this in a little bit more detail. But at the heart of the company, that's the problem we're super passionate about solving, is helping people to get access to the data faster. And it's not been an easy problem to solve, and the last 2 years have not made this any easier. With COVID, despite, regardless of all the personal stuff we had to deal with, health, mental, family, you did get to watch a lot of Netflix shows, right? But we all had to move from our offices to our home office. Maybe some of you are lucky you'd have a room. Some other of us had a kitchen or a garage, right? Or in my case, I was in a closet. But regardless, right, to say the least, the world really has changed, and it's sort of changed for good. And same with our business lives and the business world. Everything has become digitized. We used to think that, hey, you should think about digital transformation if you're an e-commerce company. That's no longer the case. If you do not have a digital presence, if you're not a digitized company, you don't exist today, right? If I can't Google you, who are you? Are you real? Right? Customers expect to see information online, expect customer support. And things that we do in the data world, things around customer 360, product 360, it used to be optional, but now it's mission critical. And if you don't know who your customer are as they're interacting with you, you're really flying in the blind, right? So at the heart of it, if you look at what's happened is the time and distance between a product and a customer, that's dramatically shrunk. And as successful companies in this new generation of technology and era, we need to shrink that same process to go from data to insights and for decision making. That's sort of what we need to do. And as data practitioners, what do we need to do to go meet that new demand and new customer expectation? We're unfortunately faced with probably one of the more complex era of dealing with data and volume today, right? People have said this many times. Data's exploded the last 10 years, right? And we're dealing with all sorts of things. And we think about approaching this problem with the 4 R's, which is how can I get to the right data, to the right people, at the right time, and I really like what Subbu said, at the right cost. If you're using data to solve problems, but you're spending 10 times the cost to do it, it's probably not a good idea, right? And why do we need to take this approach is the ways that we use data has become a lot more complex. The use cases for data no longer span one source. You're no longer just looking at a transactional system. You're looking across multiple sources of data to be able to do the things you need to do customer analysis, to do cross-sell, to do upsell, to do risk analysis, things like that. So you're crossing sources of data. And the volume is exploding. This data here, this statistic is actually wrong. Data is probably doubling every year, if not sooner, right? And while we're at it, we decided to go through the process of moving the majority of our data into cheaper storage onto the cloud, into more performance storage. And and a lot of our data is in the move, right? We're in the process of moving. So to say the least, very complex. So if we sum it up, right, data is really everywhere. And like I said, it's exploding. We still have stuff that's on-prem. We have things that are hybrid. We have things in the cloud, as we've said. And actually with the clouds, if we zoom in on a little bit more, Some of us decided to use multiple cloud infrastructures, multiple cloud availability zones, right? Just decided to add more complexity while we're at it. And then depending on the business teams you work with, you probably have your favorite analytical platform, different data warehouse types, lakes, NoSQL in this case, and even technology on the edge. And the issue that stretch across all of these is security and governance and common interoperability to be able to make this usable. So how do we as practitioners solve this? Well, the simple answer is we just move it into one place, right? Yeah. Well, not quite in our world. So this way of moving things into one place have actually been existing since the 70s. And actually 80s, 90s, really popular, great data platform called the Teradata. And I think some of us today are still taking this approach and now just moving into one place and into the cloud, right? Be it Snowflake, Databricks, or something of some similar. And the issue with this approach is it's extremely manual and time-consuming, and maybe sometimes never-ending, right? And if we look at the statistics today, any organization, IT, data engineering, 70% of that resources and people, manpower is used to move that data, right? To transform it, to build a pipeline, to connect it, to make it so that it's in some form of an analytical system that's performant. That's 70% of our jobs is trying to set up the stage, and 30% is actually to go perform. Right? It's a little bit out of whack. So how do we go change this and make things simpler for us and to be able to meet the ways our customers are seeing things today? We need to change how we view the data factory. Right? Again, this is the factory model we've had since the 70s. And I have to say, there have been a lot of innovations along this process, to say the least, right? For example, ETL tools have gone way better. Some of the folks sat here today, we load and process data much faster. Absolutely, it's a godsend, right? Snowflake is a godsend in some way to the data warehousing world to now crunch massive data at sub-second speed. But what we forget is, to still go from the left to right here, to go from a new business question to an answer involves multiple professionals, involves multiple teams, multiple experts, multiple platforms. And this process, this development process and rollout and testing process takes months, maybe weeks at best if you're a really agile organization and you're great at dealing with politics. But some people take years. Many customers I hear take years, right? So to go from a question to answer taking you years in this climate, most likely you won't be around for very long. So what do we try to do at Starburst? How do we solve that problem, right? So instead of a single source of truth, which is the way we're approaching things today, to load everything into one place, we hope to give you the ability, and we have been able to, is give you the ability to access all the data you have without needing to move it through a single portal and use something that you all know, which is SQL, and go ask that question in near real time, or I like to say in business time. Right? Cool. So what if this was possible? What does this mean for your team? Well, for the data engineers or the engineers who are here, what we help you to do is reduce the complexity that is underlying in your system today. Remove the unnecessary layers that are there, helping you to keep the system cleaner, the technical debt cleaner, saving your time for having to build the pipelines, and really giving you the ability to work more with your businesses, with the people you support. Think about analyses, think about modeling, think about risk, think about programming. For your data analyst, with something like a SQL that you can use on your own on any data source, right? You're now really empowered to go find and query your own data. And in a language that which is SQL. You don't have to learn a dozen or dozens of things to go program, or to ask somebody or try to find somebody at the water cooler, right? And and also use it with the BI tool or the analytical tool of your choice. And then again, for the business, the hope here is obviously helping businesses really be able to shorten that time and distance, from products to customers, and also making intelligent decisions in that process. So to go into a little bit more detail, what the technology essentially is doing is acting as a massively parallel query engine. That allow you to process all the information so that you can't leave it where it is and be able to run it back for you. Along with it, we have the richest connector library that connects to all the most commonly used data types and data stores in the world. So some examples of those over here, the data lakes and relational databases, and my favorite one here for today is the NoSQL stores, with Aerospike. So specifically Aerospike, with the massive, parallel capabilities you have here, what we end up doing is becoming the SQL engine on top of it. So in the examples where you talked about having terabytes and petabytes of data, where you're thinking about how to go use that, how do I go program on top of it, we're super excited that with Starburst, we allow you to go query that and use SQL on top of it. And not only just to query on top of one Aerospike, but also the ability to federate across multiple Aerospike instances, so helping to reduce that complexity. And of course, if you're a regular Starburst customer as well, you can do that. You can federate across any of the data sources you see up top. There's a lot more than that. Essentially, anything people have commonly used and is supposed to be used, you'll probably see that we connect to them and help you access that at real time. And again, all without moving your data. And as well, to be able to achieve this mission, right, of helping people access information in real time, we do this across all types of infrastructure layers, on-prem, hybrid, on all the major clouds, and again, multi-clouds, as we've now started to adopt that as well. So again, doing all of that in a single query without having to move any data through SQL. And then for the global customers, people who have to deal with data sovereignty rules, things staying within regions, countries, you do the same here with Starburst. The data can just stay where it is. Data needs to stay in Germany, no problem. The German customer data can stay in Germany, right? And other people can't see it. They can only see the results. Similarly, if you're a cloud engineer and you're getting beat down by your CIO and gosh, we're spending so much on cloud cost, how can we reduce this? How can I reduce some of the egress charge, right? Same thing. That type of technology of leaving the data where it is and allowing you to use it still applies to the clouds, is we allow you to optimize leaving the data where it is within the clouds and helping you to mitigate those egress charges. And then finally, we really think about this being a interoperability for how you access data, period, how you want to use it. So we allow you to plug it in and really use with any SQL, any consumer platform of your choice. If you're a BI analyst, Power BI, Tableau, Click, you name it, ThoughtSpot, right? Anything. If you're a data engineer, you're a programmer, on the data science side, Python, R, you name it, right? Or whatever tool of your choice. And then we also have some customers using this in their actual product application. That's okay as well, absolutely. So, but the goal is to, essentially allow you to access any data, any analytical data of your choice, just through SQL, right? Making that super simple for you without that needing ever to be moved. So how about we watch a quick demo of how this works?
This particular session is a brief demo of using the Starburst Enterprise against NoSQL database like Aerospike as such. Now, as you can see over here, what has happened right now is we have used something like a query editor, which is part of the Starburst Enterprise offering, which in turn helps you to expose the connectivity, the sets that is available on Aerospike tables, and it will help you to interact with the Aerospike database, which is a NoSQL, via a SQL construct as such. Now, from a setup standpoint, you will be able to see that I have a Aerospike connector, which has been created over here, which is nothing but my catalog. And under the catalog, you have the namespace, which is the test, under which I have kept my data in the Aerospike. And under that, you see the set names available over here. So a couple of set names that for your reference is availability, bank demo, bank transactions, demo, and superstore. So these are the sets which contains the respective bins, that is the columns, as well as their associated data as such. Now, without much further ado, what we'll do is we'll start off breaking this demo into two different sessions. One is simple set of queries as well as the complex. So when you say a simple set of queries, what are we talking about? Just like running a select star from and identifying the top 10 records from a given table. Now what I've done is I've used bank demo and exposed all the data that's available here, which contains bins like age, balance, campaign, contact, day, and default. Now let's assume that predominantly want to create something like a case statement and group these columns, right? So this particular option can be used, wherein what I've done over here is I've used the ID, the age, and based on the age, I have given a range of 0 to 25, 26 to 50, 51 to 75, and grouped them under specific groups like group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. And that is what you're seeing over here. So let's assume the ID 58 and 58 belongs to group 3. So this helps you to do any sort of case functions or if else sort of statement as well. In addition to it, most of the ad hoc requirement is all about running the aggregation. So for example, let's assume that you want to aggregate the balance associated with the entire bank demo data that I have right now. So what I'm doing is I'm just running a very quick sum against the balance column within bank demo as a data. And look at this, you have already got the data already shown up. Now the next set of aggregations is like the min, max, average functions and all those stuff. So even that works seamlessly with a select query as like this, wherein we have said select min of age, max of age from the bank demo set that is available on the Aerospike database as such. So what's happening right now is the select statement that you're running right now is converted into API call, which in turn is communicated to the Aerospike cluster in the backend by our Aerospike connectors, and virtue of which again the handshake will cause the data to be sent back to the Starburst, and that's why you're able to see the data as the minimum age is 18 and the maximum age is 95 as such. Now in addition to it, you also want to see the number of records that you have on the particular table, as well as the group by conditions or order by condition, even that is supported. So what these examples that I'm showing you are just preview or examples. There are many more such data many more such of SQL constructs that can be run using the Starburst enterprise editions. So look at this, you are able to get the number of counts against each of these contact details like cellular, telephone, and unknowns as such. Now let's assume that you want to do a between condition, a filter condition between using a between clause. We can do that, and that's the reason what we have done is select star from bank demo, where the column or the bin called day, I'm running it to show me data which is between 14th and 15th, and you should be able to see the data within no time. Yeah, look at this, you are able to see the data as such. Now let's assume you want to run distincts on a particular column. We can do that as well. In addition to it, you also can filter it based on a specific a column, like do we have a housing column set as yes or a no. So I am doing that particular value as such. So these are all these are all examples. As I said, these are all very few examples that we are showing, which explains the simple constructs, so simple SQL queries that can run on each of these columns, which is stored as sets within Aerospike as such. Now let's assume that you have complex data types, like for example, you want to transform data or run a couple of functions. For example, let's assume that you have a customer ID which has got a number as well as a character, and I just want the number to be picked up. So what I can do is I can just run this query, and you'll be able to see that it strips off the character and gives you the number as such. Similarly, Aerospike doesn't have something called a date time as a data type. So we usually use something called a Unix type. So if you have to convert this into a human readable format, we have functions like Unix from Unix type, which converts this number into readable format. And here is the example of that. So this date 1643 relates to the 1st of February 2022. Similarly, it also has the string functions like substring, instring, and many more such combinations, which is there in the documentation as such. And this is one such example of it. Now, the most complex when it comes to NoSQL is handling something like a maps and list, right? So this particular example will explain how a map and list would look like. So let's take this example wherein I have 2 records over here. out of which I have a set of a map and the associated value pair, which is a list of sorts, right? How do I extract this data? So we have functionalities over here. For example, let's assume that I'll take one of the records over here. I'm extracting a particular value. If you look at my string over here, st1, st11, and the associated value needs to be provided to me. And this particular query, by virtue of which this particular query, I'll be able to play around with the different types of CDTs, whether it is a key value map or a list, and based on the index, I can pick up the data. Now, as we see over here, I have taken, within the list, I have got the number three, and the third element within the list is a big map again, a map key value map as such. Now, how do I specifically pick out each of these? So this particular query, like the JSON extract, gives you a way to pick each of these elements using the index function, and that is what is being shown over here. As you can see, I have picked up T1, T2, and the 0, 1, and 2 are the indexes, and it has shown you these values. Let's assume that you want to pick a specific key within the extracted value. Now, in that particular case, we also support like an inline query. An example of this is what you see. And as I've been trying to tell you earlier on, these are all just examples of how we can play around with the existing data types within Aerospike much more easier using the SQL constructs. So we are open to any questions that you have. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, mine is the questions part. I think we're going to save that. But as you can see, right, it's super exciting what we can do with SQL on top of the real-time data you have in Aerospike. And one thing I didn't touch on this a little bit earlier is that not only do we help you process the data, but we help you mask it, encrypt it, fine-grain role access control. So you can see here, this is super flexible, right? Some people usually get really scared, like, gosh, what about people seeing stuff they're not supposed to see? No worries there, right? You can build in a common layer of security across all the different data sources to ensure that the right people are seeing the right data. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about who Starburst is. Again, not the candy company, but some of you might know us actually as Presto and Trino. But Starburst's been around for 3 to 4 years now, and on the left-hand side, you can see some of the companies that have decided to take a stake in Starburst. And fortunately for me as an employee, it looks like we'll be here for some time. But the technology's been around since the 2012, and we were founded at Facebook as an open source project called Presto. And for those of you who don't know what that open source project is, it's probably one of the top data engineering protocols or methods today. Facebook 2012, massive amounts of data with the users, no way to access that, right? No way to query it, to get information, no existing technology allowed them to do that. So they went ahead and created Presto. And since then, the open source really has been adopted by, I would say the leading internet companies today. So the Apples of the world, the Airbnbs, the LinkedIn. And what our founders, which are the founders of this open source project at Facebook, what we saw was, hey, look, it's great that these leading technology companies in the Bay are doing this, but we think the banks, the telecoms, the rest of the large enterprises in the world could use this and solve this problem because they deal with the most complex data issues as well, not just Facebook. So we essentially became the enterprise version of that open source technology, continued to develop it, continued to provide support for it, so that in the event that you don't have a large engineering team like Facebook, and we can give you the software version of that, which you can deploy within your data environment and help you get access to your data quicker. And certainly a lot of these customers today are both open source and Starburst to get the added support of the experts here to help you go deploy that. And on the right-hand side, as you can see, we care deeply about our customer experience and being able to get to value. And 85 is our NPS score. For those of you who don't know what that means, essentially means we're sort of in the top echelon of customer experience in terms of satisfaction, right? In the likes of Nike, Nordstrom of the world. And we hope to keep it that way. So a little bit more about this Aerospike partnership. You might think that, hey, this is the new thing. Do I want to try this? Well, the good news for you is it's already working. with our customers, and there are people really getting value out of it. This is a Fortune 500 financial services customer, one of our favorites. Unfortunately, can't tell you the name because a lot of information here is a little bit confidential. But in this case, this customer has petabytes, of data across multiple Aerospike instances in real time of trades of the customers. And they now also have streaming data on the edge that they need to be able to analyze to be able to do audit compliance issues. So with Starburst really as the SQL layer for these analysts and the entire data teams, what together now helping people to do is the compliance audit team can just go ahead and mesh the two without moving the data and be able to run analysis, be able to explore, be able to build models. And again, the beauty about SQL is a lot of people know SQL. So not just the compliance teams, not just the analysts can use it, but a lot of other tools are now able to sort of leverage this to go federate across information on the edge as well as things that's in Aerospike. So I hope to see a lot more of these between our customers, but certainly it's already helping our customers in the field today. So to sum things up, why Aerospike and Starburst? You already know a lot of great things about Aerospike. With Starburst, we really help you and hope to help you provide a SQL and BI layer securely, allow you to query that real-time data you have in Aerospike. We can help you federate those queries across multiple Aerospike instances. We want to help you do that with the data in place so you don't have to move it around, you don't have to wait, you don't have to work with other teams to do that, and really with the fastest data engine. And then lastly, help you reduce the complexity that you have to go do things. Reduce the complexity you have to manage and really help you get to data in faster time. So, thank you.